With a fireside chat remotely with Philippe Aghion, who is the 2025 winner of the Nobel Prize in Economic Science. And Philippe, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us on this fireside chat on artificial intelligence. Before we begin, we want to congratulate you on your winning the Nobel Prize. Your research and that of your co-laureates on how technology and knowledge spark sustained economic growth could not be more relevant today. And we hope you agree. Most of us believe that AI will speed idea generation, increase innovation, boost productivity, and enhance our ability to solve problems. But there are risks that AI will reduce employment and competition among firms with potentially adverse effects on society. Now, you are famously optimistic that the benefits of AI will outweigh the costs and risks. So I want to ask you a few questions to outline the nature of and reasons for your optimism and to get your thoughts on the topic of our conference. Let me start. First, will AI merely automate existing tasks, or can it radically change the way we satisfy needs and wants, business models by firms? Will that create a destruction, change firms, or terminate them? And how should we manage that?
So thanks so much for inviting me. I would not say I am. I would say I am a cautiously optimistic, conditionally optimistic. I mean, to be totally honest, I believe that AI is like the AI revolution is like a horse. If you steer the horse in the right direction, it can give you a lot of goods. But if you steer it in the bad direction or you don't steer it at all, the worst can happen. So my view is that AI has potential to deliver more growth. It has potential to create new jobs in the medium and long term. But to harness the growth potential and the job creation potential of AI, we need to reform our institutions. And that's so it's a very so I'm not very optimistic on our ability to change our institutions, you see. So that's why I would say I am moderate. I'm not unconditionally optimistic. For example, growth. We know that, why do we believe that AI should boost economic growth, productivity growth? Because it automates tasks not only in the production of goods and services, but also in the production of ideas. It makes new ideas easier to find. Very often, new ideas are partly recombination of old ideas. With AI, you will be able to recombine much more. And new ideas can be new jobs in the medium and long term. So to harness this job creation potential, this growth enhancing potential of AI, one danger is that there are limiting factors. We need human capital, which is in limited supply, and we need to adapt our human capital. And the other thing is that we experienced with the IT revolution that initially you had a boost in productivity growth in the US between 1995 2005, but then you had the emergence of large firms. And these large firms, they expanded so much, they ended up discouraging entry of new firms. That's very Schumpeterian. Yesterday's innovators discourage new innovators. And so if we want AI to deliver on its growth potential, we have to look very carefully at this competition policy issue and make sure that you won't have one or two big actors that will end up discouraging everybody else. So you need to reform competition policy in particular. So I am optimistic on the technological potential of AI to deliver more growth, but I don't know if we will be able to adapt our institution, in particular our competition policy. Same is true with jobs. Obviously, and we see that already, AI will destroy jobs. It will replace tasks. A job is a collection of tasks. There are some jobs for which AI will automate the boring task, and you can devote more time to the creative task. But there are some jobs for which most of the tasks will be replaced by AI. And so you need a labor market system that smoothes out the transition from old jobs to new jobs. And also you need to encourage those firms that enhance soft skills. So I think we will need economic systems that are much more what I would call social democrat, which think are very mindful about, what happens when someone loses her job. You need to retrain her and find her a new job, help her find a new job, and have income security. That's what they have in Denmark, for example. And also, we should encourage those firms that enhance soft skills, that work employees should be polyvalent, and they should be able to, you should enhance what I call soft skills, is the ability to interact with others, to be autonomous, there are soft skills. And I think those firms that can make their employees more polyvalent and they enhance their soft skills should be encouraged. So my view there is that there will be job destruction, and there is already job destruction, but there will be job creation as well in the longer term. And you need an economic and social system that deals with this transition from old jobs to new jobs. So that's a huge if. My feeling is that those countries that do not put in place this kind of labor market system and education system, it means also you need a schooling system which is adequate, and we can discuss that. Then AI can lead to disaster. So you see, it can be okay if we put in place the right institutions, but if we don't, AI can have disastrous consequences.
Right, so you're talking about things that are really important for our society. And you're pessimistic a little bit that we have the capacity to reform our institutions.
Yeah.
Can we be more specific about the way that we can help build soft skills and better educate people so that they understand the potential of AI, how to use it, what are the downside risks of AI?
Yeah.
Should happen in our educational system?
Yeah.
What institutional change should we make?
Yeah. I think it's very important to have some schooling with AI and some schooling without AI, because the big danger with AI, which already we had with internet, is that children no longer they are not, they lose the habit of reading, of concentrating on a problem, of calculating on their own. You see, so I think we need a whole part of schooling without AI actually, to learn to learn. At school, you learn to learn. In fact, you can learn to learn if the school is appropriately, like the no excuse charter schools that you have in the US, where you concentrate on basic knowledge in reading, writing, calculus, and that it would be very important to have big chunks of classes without AI, so that your children are trained to concentrate on a book, on a mathematical problem, on a calculation, and without AI. And homework done at school, good teachers, classes with a few pupils, and that I think is very important. So that you learn to learn, you learn to be adaptable. And then, of course, there should be special classes where you learn how to use AI, and their AI can be very helpful in, for example, left behind students can improve using AI, but you need to monitor very closely their use of AI. So that I think there is a big reform of the schooling system. And at school also you should learn the soft skills, how to work with other students, how to interact, how to, I think, countries where you have very soft skills are not enhanced in firms are also countries where soft skills are not properly taught at school. So there are ways to to reform the schooling system. That I think is very important, so that you learn how to interact with others and take initiative and be autonomous, and at the same time as you learn basic writing, reading, and calculus. And then you need these labor market institutions that I was talking about, and there the government can play a role. Danny Roderick would tell you also, and other people, that government policy can be very effective, encouraging those firms that train and enhance soft skills, and penalize those firms that use their employees like toilet paper. I think it's very important. You can have good labor market system, I think, to do that, but it's very challenging. But my optimism comes from the fact that I know we could do it. But it doesn't mean it will happen. You know what I mean? But I think that if you properly reform competition policy, education, and labor market systems, you can get something out of AI, of the AI revolution.
Well, those are big challenges that you talked about. You mentioned the role of the government. What role should the government play fostering the kinds of changes, positive changes that you'd like to see in competition policy, in our labor market, and particularly you mentioned support for people who are losing their jobs because of the transition,
Yeah.
and in our school system, because we have, in my country at any rate, we have tax on our educational system that instead of that, perhaps we should have support for the educational system that allows these changes to be made.
Exactly.
What are your views on that?
So my view is very much that we need to move into systems where, for example, when it comes to competition policy, I have a colleague at Berkeley, his name is Richard Gilbert, who criticizes competition policy in the US, but I think the same could apply to competition policy in Europe. That is very static. It's very much, market share, market definition based, and not sufficiently dynamic. You too easily allow for merger and acquisition that may stifle future entry, future innovation. That's what happened with the IT revolution. So we should make sure that that doesn't happen again, even more with the AI revolution. So we need to have a more dynamic, criteria for competition policy. Look at the effects of a merger and acquisition on future entry, future innovation. You should insist much more on data sharing. There are a number of things you can do to, and if you see that a merger led to stifle innovation, by when maybe you break up the firm, you see, you have to be to rethink competition policy. I think that I think would be very important. Of course, the problem is that incumbent firms don't want competition policy, and they can often bribe governments to not reform competition policy. That's where the civil society is so important. The voters, the media are there to denounce the collusions that might exist between vested interests, incumbent interests, and governments. But it would be very important to reform competition policy. On education, the kind of education reform that I mentioned go towards, the great work that my colleagues Raj Chetty, Josh Angrist, and others have done, and which showing the importance of well-trained teachers, of small classes, small size classes, and concentrating on basic reading, knowledge, writing, homework done at school, tutorship. All what you have in the No Excuse Charter School should be generalized, I think. That I think would be very important. And there is this whole part, therefore, of schooling without AI that should be reformed. Of course, this and the labor market reform, those are costly. Some people talk about an universal income. I am not against the idea of a universal income, and I think it's not good to give an income to do nothing. I think the income should be in exchange for either undergoing training or working. I think you should get the income if you are busy, either training or working. And that's why I'm not against the idea of universal income, but it should be attached, it should be bundled with obligations, with duties, to train and or work. I think because if you don't work, you have no life. In fact, you don't interact with others, and you are miserable. You don't have dignity. You don't have. I think it's very important. That's why I like the flex security system in Denmark. In Denmark, when you lose your job for 2 years, you get 90% of your salary. The state retrains you and helps you find a new job. And if you refuse more than 2 jobs in your qualification, then the unemployment insurance goes down. I think this kind of system is I think interesting to push. So that's very much what I call the social democrat agenda.
Great. So you and I as instructors face a challenge in education. And that one of those challenges is grade inflation. And it's
Yeah.
epidemic proportions in our institutions of higher learning. what should we do to correct that so that people can really be evaluated on basic skills, critical thinking,
Yeah.
and the things that you talk?
It's interesting what you say. For example, in Sweden, there are many things they do well in Sweden, and I'm a big admirer of Sweden. But one thing that was not a big success was the schooling reform, because they allowed for-profit schools. And and they would subsidize schools also, the government, proportionally to the number of students they attract. And some schools, to attract students, would engage in grade inflation, you see, to make it more attractive for families too. So of course the educated parents would know where to put their children, but the less educated parents would be fooled by the system. So I think it's very important to fight to have non-profit schools and not for profit, and to restore the use of grades, but of course in a non-humiliating way. In my youth in France, sometimes a bad grade was used in a humiliating way, and there it should be used so that how you can improve upon yourself in a way which is non-humiliating. But we went in France after 1968 from one extreme to the other, from humiliating grading to no grading. That I think is very bad.
Right. There's a second challenge, which has come with the introduction of AI, and that is in the classroom, even if we focus on basic skills and learning to learn, as you say, without AI, you can't necessarily control that outside the classroom. And how do we understand and detect whether or not the work is original to the student or whether the student is using AI as a crutch to
Yeah,
do their work?
that's why I believe that homework should be done at school as much as possible, and not at home.
Sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not.
No, no, but that should be. I mean, and then therefore you need, of course, this need better finance schools. But I think that's why the no excuse charter schools do. The homework is done at school. And I think we should just generalize the system. We know it works well.
Yeah, when I was a high school student, we had study halls.
Yeah,
Work
exactly.
was done in the study hall, and that
Exactly.
was
And then you can check, you see.
right. And more generally, how do we tell what information is real and what is deep fake? Because obviously that is being used for all kinds of illicit activity and other nefarious purposes. Are there ways that we can think about making sure that we can validate these things?
Yeah, it's a very good question and a very difficult one. I think it's very important to track the source of the information, and also to make as much as possible to see whether there are convergent sources. You see, that's what we try to do. You see, how do we knew that there were some people who were denying Auschwitz, and how did we know it was true? Because we asked many people to tell us about Auschwitz, and they gave the same testimony. You see, they gave the same account, and we knew it was true. So it's very important to have multiple sources, to confront the multiple sources, to make sure they are truly independent sources, and to track the sources and to check that they converge to similar conclusions. That's what you do in economics as well. You don't look at only one measure. You look at several measures, and if you see that several measures of innovation. For example, you can have patenting, you can have new products, flow of new products, productivity growth. If you see that all indicators converge to the same kind of things, you feel that you have something. You see what I mean? And we should do that increasingly more. To track the source, to make sure that you don't have several times the same source, and check for different source, truly different sources leading to one conclusion. Then then you are more secure that you are putting your finger on something reliable. But that's a lot of work.
I like that. So my next question is maybe the most important one, which is we now seem to be in a mythos moment and a glasswing moment. What guardrails of governance are needed so that we can really trust AI? And where's the balance between open source and regulation?
You're right, and that's a difficult question because if you the AI revolution is speeding up where we are, and the regulations apply to the yesterday's AI, not to tomorrow's AI, and so on the one hand, if you have no regulation, you see you 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 face big dangers, and we know that there are some big companies that decided not to pursue some research on AI because they fear the worst possible use of AI. So you need regulations to protect individuals. I don't want to. It would be very bad if I pretend to be you and make you make you say silly things. We have to protect you. We need regulations and to protect against many possible perverse use of AI. On the other hand, too many regulations have the drawback of becoming an entry barrier to new AI companies. I was telling you before that the extent to which AI we can boost productivity growth will hinge or partly on the fact that the AI revolution does not stifle competition and entry. So you have to be very careful when you design the regulations that because the large incumbents, they usually know how to circumvent the regulations, but the small entrants can be discouraged, deterred by the regulation. So you need regulation, but you need the right kind of regulations, and it's very hard. There is a very fine line there to be found between no regulations and then we're facing the worst possible dangers, and accumulation of too many regulations, which ends up stifling new entry. And with another perverse effect is that AI will migrate to countries, that have no regulation. And at the end of the day, you achieve a worse outcome, like pollution, like, if you have too high carbon tax, the danger is that all in manufacturing activities are being outsourced to pollution heavens. So there is a fine line to be drawn there. Yeah. And it's
No
important to
question.
have countries collaborate, that a number of countries that share the same basic values of democracy, of rule of law, of the importance of freedom and protecting individuals, and they get together and they act together. I would say the Mark Carney approach, you see, Mark Carney's speech in Davos.
Right, I can agree with that. Well, last, we focused today on artificial intelligence and risk management. That was the theme of our conference. What is your view on whether and how we should use these new tools to better identify, analyze, and manage risk?
How can we use AI to better identify?
Identify, analyze, and manage risk.
Yeah, look, AI can be. I think the thing is that AI can help enormously assess risks. You can, compute parameters much more quickly and evaluate, scenarios much more quickly. And on the other hand, AI has its own risk itself, and so we want to make sure that you don't create more risk than you solve, and that's the big challenge. You see, that's where the human factor is important. You see, the technology may go very fast, but we need to not be dominated by the technology, and that's where we need to train individuals to have the human capital that will allow us to really use AI to master risk and to limit the risk. I mean, because there is new risk with AI which are enormous. Now, I heard, for example, Joshua Benjo told me about a story which was very similar to 2001 Space Odyssey. It was he created a fictitious firm with a fictitious manager, fictitious employees. The manager sends an email to the fictitious employees announcing he will update the AI, the AI file, and at the same time, the manager has extramarital affair. The AI threatened the manager to send an email to the employees saying, if you turn me down off, I will reveal your extramarital affair. We are getting almost, we are in 2001 Space Odyssey. So we have to be extremely careful. And those are the new risks.
I like that metaphor. So, well said. Thank you, Philippe.
Thank you.